Well, hello there. This is Lichess the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. Today, I've got two games of the Smith-Morra Gambit. One of my favourite responses, and I think it probably is one of the best responses to Black's Sicilian Defense. We're playing with the white pieces. As I said, I've got two games. The first game, I won reasonably well with a clever tactic. But on analysis, I discover one of the most amazing computer lines I've ever seen. And in the second game, I played a game of pirate chess. Unsound, aggressive moves where I was losing, but somehow I managed to get the reversal. Let's go take a look. So, what is the Smith-Morra Gambit? It starts with the Sicilian Defense. We've got white pieces, e4, Sicilian c5. Sicilian Defense, one of the best responses to 1e4 that Black can play. In fact, it's one of the very few responses that Black has where if you look on the Lichess community database, Black and White have equal win ratios, about 48% each. Pretty much in most other responses to 1e4, White has a slight advantage from going first. Here, it's equal. However, I really enjoy playing down the line where Black doesn't really get Sicilian type structures. And that is the immediate d4 challenge. They pretty much have to take. Anything else is not so good. Now c3. So this is Smith-Morra Gambit. Smith-Morra Gambit accepted. And basically we capture back with the knight. And the really cool thing here is that once we transform to the Smith-Morra Gambit accepted, which I think is actually the most accurate response for Black, White actually regains an advantage, somewhere around 52% to 47%, which is really great. Now, in the accompanying article to this video, I go through a little bit of the history of the Smith-Morra Gambit and the Smith-Morra Gambit accepted, including the very first game in the early 19th century when it was played by French masters, but also played by a Serbian GM in the mid-20th century as well. And there's some interesting history on why the Gambit is not named after him. We'll go and take a look. All right, so let's carry on. So in the first game, Black plays fairly well, fairly standard. Developed the knight, we developed the bishop with an attack, and now with e6, blocking that attack. Makes a lot of sense. Develop the other knight, and in this position after a6, again, very standard, this is something called the Porcelain formation. So Black is up a point of material, but White is slightly winning. So the evaluation according to Stockfish is slightly better for Black, but when you look at the win ratios in the Lichess community database, White has a slight advantage. The game progresses on with a little bit of shuffling from this position, which is actually really common in the Smith-Morra Gambit when Black kind of knows what they're doing. So I short castle, they launch an attack on the bishop, that's fine, pull it back. Here, a little bit inaccurate, but the best move was this knight to a5 with an attack on the bishop. You know, doesn't look like the most intuitive move. That's okay. I push the bishop back. And now, one of the things I know, having played this position for quite a few times now, like my favorite response to Sicilian, is that this move is potentially quite good. And the idea actually is potentially to bait f6, which sort of makes, you know, Black lose a natural developing position for the knight. Now, potentially this is all right because they can develop the knight here in this direction, and that's what they do. Now, rook to c1, but here kind of worked. They pushed f6. This apparently is not the best position for Black, and now it's, you know, somewhat weakening here, and notice these potential weak light squares as well. Pull the bishop back, they do it a second time. You can see it's a mistake, but it's not so clearly a mistake. So knight g6 apparently is best for Black with an attack here. Again, a little bit hard to see. Bishop now back to e3. And, you know, some weakness, potentially if they want to castle short, but also, you know, with these pawn moves, it looks like castling queenside is not so good either. Now, they decide to move their bishop back. It's a mistake, and see, so black is a little bit ahead here. And this kind of seems like it makes sense a bit, you know, maybe trading the bishops. Stockfish says actually trading this way is best for black. Again, a complicated position, not terribly obvious that that's the best move for black. Now I take, queen captures back, ostensibly I suppose. They've got a bit of queen development. And this position, I thought, look, what am I going to do? Not so clear, but here we go. Knight jumps forward, attack on the queen, and the idea is we trade, and I thought about capturing this way, or do I capture this way, but I decide to capture with the queen. Now Stockfish doesn't really like it. It says pawn is better because there's an attack on the knight. However, I thought this brings my queen into the center of the board. Also, it forms a battery with that light square bishop. Immediately, potentially there's a problem for black on f7. So I thought this was potentially okay. Sure, you know, pawn captures is good as well. All right, so they now bring the rook this way to defend f7. In this position, I played this move, knight to h4, and the idea is potentially in the future, I thought this would be useful for the knight to cover the e7 square. And as we'll see in the game, this actually ends up being correct. However, you might have seen that Stockfish says that is the best move. And here, this is, I have to say, when I sort of analyze sort of games after the fact, this is literally the most impressive line I have ever found via computer. And it just goes to show just how potentially fun and tactical it can be in a Smith-Morra Gambit. This is a triple brilliant line with 3-piece sacrifices. Firstly, knight sacrifices itself by capturing a pawn inside. A brilliant move, captures, looks like it's a plain loss, but now we sacrifice the rook. A rook captures the knight, captures. What's this about? Well, we now gotten rid of that pawn, captures with check. King slides to the side. And these are all the best moves by black. Rook now to d1 with check. Notice, covered. What does black do? Pretty much has to play, you know, block with the bishop. The rook now sacrifices itself as well. The second rook captures. And here, black actually can't capture the rook because if they did, it is mate in 4. And you know, look at that. Black's up 6 points of material. It doesn't matter. Check. King shuffles. Check. King shuffles. And that is another check and mate. Absolutely amazing line. So triple brilliancies, 3-piece sacrifice combo. Absolutely fantastic. I didn't see that in the game. I don't know if I will ever see it. As I said, I played this move, knight to this position, with that idea. I thought that was still potentially a good idea. Now, black here decides to leap forward and go for an attack. So this is what they're looking for, you know, looking to have an absolute fork of a king and rook. However, this was a blunder because they hang their rook. Now, I was actually worried, you know, do I end up trapping my queen in that position? After I calculated a bit, I thought, no, I don't. I capture the rook. And here, the problem is black's back rank. I think they thought they were fine, but they are not fine. So here, they jump forward to give that check. As I said, absolute check. It's a blunder because at high depth, this is actually a forced mate in 12. Pretty amazing. Obviously, I didn't know it was mate in 12, but that's all right. I move, obviously have to move the king, force move, they capture, but now that I capture back with the rook, I've got pressure on the pinned piece. They try to move the king, but remember, my knight. Knight jumps to f5 with check. Notice the bishop covers that light square diagonal. King forced back onto the back rank. and now it's back rank mate. They've got no sort of wriggle room, or rook captures the bishop, or with check, queen has to block, but the queen, defends with its body for one move, and that is mate. Never too late to hang back rank mate. Good game, GG. Let's look now at the second game. So this was a game against a random noob, and in fact this game was what kind of inspired me because it was just so fun, so dynamic. It was an unrated game of 10-minute rapid where I wasn't logged in, that I decided to create the video from yesterday, which was doing the Noob versus Noob Unplugged. Go check it out. Now this second game was a game of 10-minute rapid with 5-second increment. I played this game on Lichess. Let's go take a look. So let's get back to the Smith-Morra Gambit accepted position. E4, Sicilian Defense, C5, Smith-Morra Gambit captures, C3 captures, accepted, and the knight. Okay, so very, very similar. Their knight comes out, bishop, staring at the F7 square, but here they play a very interesting move. So a fianchetto type setup with a G6, perfectly good for black. Now, I actually played this game after I had dinner, and I actually had a little bit to drink, so I was actually a little bit tipsy playing this game. So I played a fairly provocative sort of move. It was just the mood I was in, which was queen to F3. Clearly developing out the knight is better. I was just seeing, what are you going to do? I'm threatening a scholar's mate. Now this is a terrible move because it's actually fairly easy to block. Best move is probably just for them to develop their other knight that blocks the scholar's mate, and it sort of puts the queen in a sort of odd sort of place. It shouldn't really be there. In this game they decide to block with E6. Less accurate, still perfectly all right, because this is a Sicilian defense type game, and E6 is a pretty normal move. Now in this position, I just developed the knight here, and I didn't actually see that they now have knight leaps forward to E5. This is the problem with bringing your queen out early. It's likely to get chased. It just causes a problem. That's a fork. And in this position, I decide, oh, gee, I've just lost that bishop, and I just slid my queen to G3. Now, you can see that here, it's a straight up loss. It's a mistake. It's about -2.5, I think, because I basically just lost that bishop. The best move in this position is actually queen to E3. I didn't see it in the game because what you've got here is after captures, now you've got this fork of the rook and the knight, and we win the knight back. So effectively, we've traded our bishop for the knight, and trade minor pieces, it's potentially okay. As I said, I didn't see that in the game, and so instead I played queen to G3, clean loss. And in this position, after that loss, playing pretty quickly, as you can see, 5-second increment, still above 10 minutes, kind of woke me up, and I thought, I really want to play this for a reversal. Pirate chess, I want to play swashbuckling tactics. I want to at least get a reversal, try to wrangle a draw, if not a win. So from this position, I sort of stopped, got me out of my sort of alcoholic haze, played deliberately provocative, tricky tactics. All right, let's get the king out of there first. So Stockfish reckons to push the knight. I thought about that, but that just means that the knight jumps backwards. I didn't like that. Let's get the king to safety first. All right, they fianchetto their bishop. And here, tricky sort of move. Again, just like the last game, what I'm potentially angling for is for them to push F6 and basically to block in their bishop. Now, once again, they potentially can develop their knight, so it's not necessarily the best move, but here they decide to, because they're up a piece, they want to trade pieces. That's the right approach, but pull my bishop back, and here they push the E pawn, E5. Great for me because they had to move their they've moved that pawn twice, so they lost a bit of tempo. It's also blocked, and now their bishop is hemmed in. Their fianchetto bishop is hemmed in. Now, Stockfish is not particularly impressed with my tactic. You can see, he reckons it doesn't really matter. However, I think in real game it does matter because it's not so easy for them to maneuver their dark square bishop now. All right, bishop all the way back because I want to defend that pawn. And that was in fact the best move. Their knight now leaps backwards, realizing there's no real life there. I now push my b pawn to b3, sort of intervening 2 squares between that and their knight. So that just stops it from potentially moving back forward. Happy with that. They play, reasonable move, d6. Here, threatening, what are you going to do? They develop their light square bishop, makes sense. Fairly passive move perhaps, defending. And here they push on the queen moves out of the way. And now they make their first mistake in this part of the sort of an early middle game. Notice my dark square bishop still controls that entire dark square diagonal. And with g3, their bishop is trapped. So potentially I win back a piece. Very, very happy. In this position, white decided to double down and play bishop to h3. This is actually a bit inaccurate for them. It's almost close to equality. Obviously, they're attacking my rook. Here, I knew the most logical thing is just to move the rook out of the way, potentially rook d1. And that is, in fact, the best move. There's a battery there. However, I'm trying to play pirate tactics. I want to play bombastic, aggressive, tactical play. And I was thinking here, if I move my rook, their bishop, light square bishop, remains on h3. And I can't really move it out of the way. It's close to the king, it looks a bit dangerous, and potentially if their queen ever got here, I'm in serious trouble, I'm toast. So I didn't really like the fact that their bishop was there. So Stockfish isn't afraid, but it's hard to play for a human. So I thought, why don't I trade my rook for their bishop? I'm going to take that bishop anyway. We'll still be back to piece numerical equality. Sure, I've lost a rook for one of their bishops, but I still have the knight pair. Knight pairs are often very strong. I decided to play it this way and maybe rattle my opponent slightly. So rather than moving my rook, pirate chess, I immediately captured their bishop. So you can see Stockfish doesn't approve. Obviously they capture with king. Let's see what happens. All right, they now jump their knight forward. And in fact, this is a mistake. In fact, I rattled them right away. This is a mistake because h3 is immediately practically trapping their knight. Their knight has to jump all the way back because anywhere else, again, it's captured. They could try to give a check, but if they did that after king to g1, the knight is in fact trapped. However, in this position, I didn't actually see that. I didn't actually see that their knight could be trapped actually in the game. I just thought king, g1, again, just like the pawn, 2 squares away diagonal, attacking piece 2 squares away from the knight. Knight can't really jump forward. So I thought that looked good. Now, they play the queen. You can see I've got my reversal already. However, that wasn't the reversal I was looking for. That's a mistake. They should have taken that pawn because they actually can't take anything here. Like in this position, I can actually play f3, and again, their knight is trapped. No escape square now for the knight, and the knight is lost. So that's why that's a mistake. That's why I've got the reversal. However, in this position, what I was seeing was, look at these dark squares here. Look at these dark squares here. I thought I potentially had a counterattack on their kings. I'm still thinking pirate chess. I'm thinking, how can I attack back? Here, I thought that their position was a lot stronger than what it actually was because I didn't see f3, so I needed to counterattack. So firstly, queen, b5, attack on the king. You can see it's a mistake, -4. Black is technically winning. Let's see what happens. King now moves over onto these dark squares. All right, I bring my knight back. I have to, of course, defend the f2 squared, the pawn on f2. Otherwise, it's lights out. It's mate for me. They capture. That's fine. That gives me a turn. I'm going to ignore their attack. I'm going to counterattack. I'm not going to defend. I'm going to counterattack. This is rudiments of pirate chess because I don't lose if I wrangle a win or a draw. All right, now pinning that pinning their d6 pawn, and of course attacking that with a potential check. Again, attacking down these light squares. All right, they give a check, king out of the way. I thought they were going to do this. I thought that was fine. I calculated I had just enough turns. There we go, blocking the check with check. King here, so they can't take with check. Again, still 2 squares away from their knight, so there's no check there. What are they going to do? So I think they got a little bit spooked here and they moved their king. I could have just taken the knight, that's fine. And now I take. Again, see all along these dark squares. I'm counter-attacking rather than defending. They take. Seemingly great move here, right? With a check, absolute fork, king and rook, of course, block with the knight. And here, what is black's best move? Can you see? Their best move is to force my queen. They had to bring another piece into the attack while the queen was defending their e5 pawn, preventing check. However, black couldn't resist. Obviously, they were looking at that absolute fork. That rook looks like it's a prime to be taken, captures, and looks like they can capture there as well. But look at that, 0, 0, 0. Because in this position, I can wrangle a draw. Queen captures a pawn on e5. It's a check, and it's a skewer of the king against the rook. In this position, black's king has only a few good moves. So it can move back onto the back rank. Okay, but if it moves back onto the back rank, it doesn't work because I can eventually gain a position where I end up with basically a Sutswang, where any move that black makes is a mistake. They chose to block with their f pawn, which is potentially fine, but now queen infiltrates, queen to e7, king to g8, queen back, king dances back, and here we can do a shuffle, and it's threefold repetition. Or the king can escape to h6. And rather than to repeat the move, black decided to try to run their king. It looks like they should be able to escape, because they probably calculated that this was definitely a draw. But bang, it's a blunder. And it's an absolutely brilliant sequence of moves. I found it. Admittedly, it's not hard to find in the position. It firstly involves 3 tricky knight moves. It starts with knight to g4. The double check. The double check meaning they can't take the bishop, they can't take the knight. Double checks make the impossible possible. King is now forced to h5. And here, knight now jumps to f6. Again, a check with the knight. And we're going to see 3 knight moves in a row. King forced to the only legal square, h4. And here, one more knight move. Notice if there's going to be a discovered check. Knight now leaps to e4, discovered check, and here the king has 2 legal moves, but it actually doesn't matter which of the squares it goes to, whether it's h5 or g4. And again, they went to g4. Along that dark square diagonal covered by the dark square bishop. Remember to attack along the dark squares? Queen now goes to g5, and it's mate. Good game, GG. The big takeaway from this game is that if you love open, fun, and tactical lines, then the Smith-Morra Gambit is a fantastic response to the Sicilian Defense. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.